The sister everyone believed. The first time my family called me selfish, I was 17. The last time they called me selfish, I was 34. The difference was that, by then, I had finally learned what the word really meant. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when my younger sister, Nadia, arrived at my house carrying 3 suitcases, a designer handbag, and the same helpless expression she had perfected since childhood. She didn't knock. She never did. She opened the gate, walked across the compound, and entered my living room as if the house belonged to her. "Please tell me you can help me." I looked up from my laptop. "What happened?" She dropped her handbag onto my sofa. My landlord locked my gate. I blinked. "Why?" She stared at me. "Because I haven't paid rent." "How long?" She looked away. "Nadia?" "For months." I slowly closed my laptop. "For months. I was going to pay." "With what?" She sighed dramatically. "Don't start." That sentence was familiar. Whenever Nadia had made a mistake, anyone asking a reasonable question was accused of attacking her. I stood up. "How much do you owe?" She named the amount. It was almost twice my monthly salary. I stared at her. Then she smiled. That smile told me everything. She hadn't come to tell me about her problem. She had come because she already expected me to solve it. And for years, I had. But that Saturday was different. Because 3 weeks earlier, I had discovered something Nadia didn't know I had found. A folder, a bank statement, and one message that changed everything. Growing up, Nadia was the beautiful one. At least, that was what my mother always said. "Look at those eyes. Nadia has such a sweet face." Nadia was born to live a soft life. I was the opposite. Quiet, responsible, always studying, always helping. If Nadia forgot her school project, I helped her finish it. If she broke something, I took the blame. If she spent her allowance before the week ended, I gave her mine. My mother called it sisterhood. I called it survival. Because in our house, the easiest way to avoid trouble was to keep Nadia happy. When I got my first job, I thought things would finally change. I was wrong. The request simply became more expensive. First, it was small. "Please lend me 20,000. Then 50,000. Then 100,000. Then she started asking me to pay bills directly because she claimed she was terrible with money. I should have stopped. Instead, I created a separate account specifically for helping her. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself family should support family. And every time she promised to repay me, I believed her. Until one evening, for years into the arrangement, she called me crying. "Please, I need you." "What happened?" "My business partner stole from me." "How much?" 300,000. I didn't even hesitate. I transferred the money. 2 days later, I saw Nadia's Instagram story. She was sitting beside a swimming pool at a luxury hotel. Champagne on the table. New sunglasses. A caption underneath. "Sometimes you just have to choose yourself." I stared at the photograph for a long time. Then I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. There wasn't. There really was. The real problem started when my father became sick. My mother called me one morning. "Your father needs his medication." "I'll send money." "We need more than that." "How much?" She gave me a figure. I sent it immediately. Then another call came. And another. By the end of the month, I had paid the hospital balance, bought medication, handled groceries, and covered transport. But when I asked Nadia to contribute something, my mother became strangely quiet. "She's going through a difficult time." I laughed. "Mom, everyone is going through something. Don't be harsh. I've been paying for everything. You have a stable job." There it was. The sentence that had followed me all my life. Because I was responsible, everyone assumed I had an unlimited supply of strength. Nobody asked what responsibility was costing me. Nobody asked whether I was tired. They simply handed me another problem. So I carried it. Until I couldn't. 6 months later, I bought a small house. It wasn't impressive. No swimming pool. No giant compound. No expensive furniture. Just a quiet 3-bedroom house with a little garden in front. I was proud of it. It was the first thing I had ever owned that nobody had given me. I invited my parents for dinner. Nadia came too. She walked through the rooms inspecting everything. "You bought this?" "Yes." She opened a cupboard. "How much?" I told her. She whistled. "You actually had this kind of money." I smiled. I saved. She laughed. You've always been so secretive. I ignored the comment. That night, my father raised his glass. To my daughter, everyone smiled. Then Nadja said something that I will never forget. You know, Dad, if you really wanted to help us, you would have given the house to me. The room went silent. I looked at her. She laughed. I'm joking, but she wasn't. 3 weeks later, I found the folder. I had gone to my parents' house to help my mother organize some old documents. While looking through a cabinet, I noticed an envelope with Nadja's name. I wasn't trying to invade her privacy. I almost put it back. Then I saw my name. My heart stopped. Inside was a bank statement. A transfer from Nadja to my mother. The amount was enormous. I stared at the date. It was from 2 months earlier. I checked another page. Another transfer. Then another. Nadja had been sending my mother money. Regularly, thousands at a time. My mother had been telling me she couldn't afford medication. Nadja had been sending her money. And my mother had been asking me for money too. I felt sick. I kept reading. Then I found something worse. A message printed on a piece of paper. It was from Nadja to my mother. Don't tell her about the money I'm sending. If she thinks I have savings, she stop helping me. I sat on the floor. For several minutes, I couldn't move. All those years, every emergency, every desperate phone call, every time my mother told me Nadja was struggling. It had been a performance, and I had been the only person who didn't know I was in the audience. I didn't confront them immediately. That surprised even me. Instead, I went home. I opened my own records. I calculated everything. Rent, school fees, medical bills, business expenses, transfers, loans, emergency payments. The total made my hands go cold. I had given Nadja and my mother more money than I had spent on myself in the previous 5 years, and most of it had never been an emergency. It had simply been convenient. I made one decision. I wouldn't expose them. Not yet. I wanted to see how far the lie would go. 2 months later, my mother announced a family meeting. Everyone came. My uncle, my aunt, my cousins, my parents, Nadja. I immediately knew something was wrong. My father cleared his throat. Your sister has an opportunity. Nadja smiled. She was wearing a new dress. What opportunity? I already knew. My mother answered. Nadja has found a property she wants to purchase for her business. I looked at Nadja. Congratulations. She smiled. We need a small loan. I leaned back. How small? My father named the amount. It was more money than I had ever given Nadja at once. I shook my head. No. The room went quiet. My mother looked shocked. What do you mean, no? I mean, I won't be lending that money. Nadja's smile disappeared. Why? Because I can't. You just bought a house. Yes. So you have money. I have savings. You can use your savings. No. My uncle leaned forward. She's your sister. I looked at him. I know. Then why are you refusing? I took a breath. Because helping someone doesn't mean financing everything they want. Nadja suddenly stood. You've changed. No, I said quietly. I've learned. She slammed her hand on the table. You think you're better than everyone now because you bought a house. I looked directly at her. No, I think I'm finally allowed to keep what I earn. My mother began crying. And suddenly everyone started talking. I was selfish. I was proud. I had become arrogant. Money had changed me. I listened. Then I reached into my handbag. I placed the folder on the table. Nobody spoke. Nadja's face changed. My mother stopped crying. I opened the first page. I found these. Nadja stared at the statements. Then at my mother. Mom. My mother looked away. I continued. I saw every transfer. Nadja stood frozen. You knew. I nodded. For 2 months. Her voice became smaller. You've been checking my accounts. No. I pushed the papers toward her. You sent this money to Mom. She looked at the pages. Then whispered. I was going to tell you. When? She said nothing. I turned to my mother. You told me Dad needed medication. He looked at me. I did. And Nadja paid you. My father looked confused. Paid me what? I realized something my father hadn't known. I looked at Nadja. You didn't tell Dad either. She started crying. Not the dramatic tears I had seen before. Real tears. Messy ones. But I was too tired to feel sorry for her. Why? She wiped her face. Because I was scared. Of what? Of losing everything. I stared at her. You weren't losing everything. She shook her head. You don't understand. Then explain it. She couldn't. Finally, she whispered. I owed people money. How much? She looked at the floor. My father stood. How much, Nadja? She didn't answer. My mother finally spoke. Almost $2 million. Everyone froze. I sat back. $2 million. The business. The clothes. The vacations. The restaurant dinners. The car. The expensive apartment. All of it had been purchased on borrowed money. Nadja had been drowning for years. And instead of asking for help honestly, she had built an entire fake life. But then came the twist I never expected. My mother looked at me. I knew. I stared at her. What? I knew about her debts. How long? Almost 2 years. I felt something inside me crack. 2 years. She nodded. She begged me not to tell you. And you agreed. My mother began crying again. She was afraid you'd abandon her. I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. You were afraid I'd abandon her. I stood. I was the person keeping her alive. Nobody answered. I picked up my handbag. Then Nadja said, Please. I stopped. She walked toward me. I know I lied. I turned around. I know I used you. I know I made everyone think you were difficult. I said nothing. She began crying. But I didn't know how to stop. For the first time, I believed her. Not because she deserved forgiveness, but because I finally understood that she wasn't powerful. She was terrified. Terrified people can hurt others terribly. And Nadja had. But I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life rescuing her from the consequences. I walked to the door. My father called my name. Where are you going? Home. Can you really leave your sister like this? I looked back. I'm not leaving her. I pointed toward the folder. She's standing exactly where her choices brought her. Then I left. The next 6 months were difficult. Nadja had to sell her car. Then she moved out of her expensive apartment. She closed the business. She started working for another company. My mother was angry with me for weeks. My father barely spoke to me. Relatives called. Some told me I was cruel. Others secretly admitted they had always suspected Nadja was living beyond her means. But I refused to defend myself. For years, I had spent my life explaining my decisions to people who had already decided. I was wrong. I was finished. I changed my phone number. I stopped sending emergency money. I paid my own bills. I invested. I traveled. I slept. And slowly, something strange happened. I became happy. Not the loud happiness Nadja used to display online. Quiet happiness. The kind that doesn't need an audience. A year later, I received a letter. It was from Nadja. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. There was no request for money. No emergency. No guilt. Just a few pages. She wrote about working. About learning to budget. About paying off her smallest debt. About how embarrassing it had been to start over. Then she wrote something that made me stop. For the first time in my life, I'm proud of something nobody can see. I read this sentence twice. At the bottom was a photograph. Nadja standing outside a tiny rented apartment. No designer clothes. No expensive car. No perfect background. Just her. Smiling. Behind the photograph was a handwritten note. I don't expect you to trust me. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. I put the photograph on my desk. I didn't send her money. I didn't promise forgiveness. But I wrote back. Keep trying. That was all. 2 years after the family meeting, my father invited everyone to dinner. I almost didn't go, but I went. Nadja arrived late. She looked different. Not poorer. Different. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She brought a homemade cake. My mother hugged her. My father smiled. Then Nadja looked at me. For a second, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, How are you? I'm good. She nodded. Your garden looks beautiful. Thank you. She smiled. I remember when I told you that you didn't deserve your house. I smiled slightly. I remember. I was jealous. I know. She took a breath. I thought if I made you feel small, I'd feel bigger. I looked at her. Did it work? She shook her head. No. Then she laughed softly. It only made me smaller. That night, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need Nadja to lose everything. I didn't need my family to apologize publicly. I didn't even need them to admit I had been right. I had spent years waiting for justice to look like someone else's suffering. But justice had turned out to be much quieter. It was waking up without fear. It was checking my bank account and knowing the money was mine. It was saying no without explaining myself. It was helping people because I wanted to not. Because I was afraid they would hate me if I didn't. And most importantly, it was finally understanding that being a good daughter, sister, or friend doesn't mean becoming the emergency fund for everyone around you. Sometimes love needs a boundary. Sometimes kindness needs a limit. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to someone who has spent years depending on you is simply, I love you, but I will not destroy myself to save you. I still speak to Nadia. We're not the sisters we were when we were children. Maybe that's a good thing, because now, when she calls me, I don't immediately reach for my bank card. I listen. If she needs advice, I give it. If she needs encouragement, I offer it. But if she asks me for money, I tell her the truth. No. And surprisingly, our relationship survives. Because for the first time, it isn't built on what I can provide. It's built on who we actually are. And that was the greatest lesson my family ever taught me. You can spend your whole life proving that you're useful. But the moment you stop being useful to people who only valued what you could give them, you'll discover something beautiful. You were never difficult. You were never selfish. You were simply exhausted. And sometimes, saving yourself is the first truly generous thing you can do. If you've ever been the person everyone calls when they need something, but nobody checks on when you're hurting, I want you to know this. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to keep your money. You are allowed to protect your peace. And you do not have to destroy yourself just to prove that you love your family. If this story touched you, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. And if you believe boundaries are not cruelty but courage, subscribe for more stories about betrayal, family secrets, second chances, and people who finally learn to choose themselves.